It's Song Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show where we share tips on becoming better songwriters and other related topics. Tonight, I am your host, Phil Emery. Neil, my usual partner in crime, is away at a wedding, and we wish him well as he sits around and waits for dinner, which always takes forever and ever and ever. Don't forget, we want to hear your thoughts and hear any questions you may have about the stuff we talk about. So send us an email to feedback@songtalk.ca, and we'll share them right here. Tonight, it's all about PR and how a PR agent can or cannot help you in growing your career. And to help us out with this is someone who we have worked alongside with for how many years?
Three, four
maybe? A long time. And that is Carrie Zalick, the founder of Bad Parade, Canadian music and entertainment publicity. Carrie has decades of experience promoting Canadian artists, both established and just getting started. Artists like Toto, the Crash Test Dummies, and a few who have even been on our show. Great to see you again. Thanks so much for being on.
So nice to see you. Thanks for having me. I was so excited to be invited back. Surprised and very excited. So thank you for having me.
What is so weird is because we actually probably communicate with each other like almost once every other week at least.
Yeah, routinely. Yep, 100%.
So we should have you on more often. And your shows are always really popular because it's really important stuff that most people talk about. So we're going to talk about getting a PR agent to work with you as a songwriter. But so what are the kind of like the most common misconceptions about what PR agents are and what they do for someone?
I'm so glad you asked, and that is the perfect place to start because there are so many. Some people might be tuning in and thinking, oh, she does this or that. So I think clearing up exactly what a publicist does is a great place to kick things off. We are the liaison between artists and the media. Now, publicists work in a variety of different areas. There's product publicists, there's movie publicists. I, of course, work in music. And at the core, we're just the in-between. We're the people that write the message and know how to distill it into something that works with all different types of media. But I think a lot of people think we do a variety of different things, which we don't. So one of the main ones is social media. We do not do socials. If we are representing an artist, we're not taking over their social media accounts. It's possible that some will, but we certainly aren't, designing their posts and doing things like that. We're not working with Spotify. I probably should have said that first. We're not working with the DSPs. So Spotify, Amazon, you name it. That's not fully within our domain. Typically, when, artists talk often about wanting to get on an editorial playlist or the cover of a playlist, and that's typically done. The first sort of point of contact is their distribution company. So there's a variety of them in Canada and around the world, and distributors will pitch artists to these DSPs, and from there they'll make a decision about who they want to bring on to, put them on the playlist or have them on the cover, have them curate the playlist. But that's not us. And then the next sort of line of defense here after that distribution company is management. It could be the manager that's reaching out directly for trying to get that placement. But with Spotify, that's not really, or any of them, I keep using Spotify like Kleenex. But if an artist wants to be on an editorial playlist, it's typically done through distribution or their manager. So those are really important. And then I think the last thing I want to say about a misconception is that we're not miracle workers and things take time. So, it is, I would say, somewhat common to get a phone call or an email saying, hey, Carrie, I've just released a song, can I work with you on it? Or I will have a song coming out on Friday. Like, what can we do? And it's not possible. We need time. Time is our number one asset. I know I probably sound like an investment banker, but time is the most important thing. Other than phenomenal quality music and wonderfully written songs, we need time. It doesn't happen overnight. We love a viral moment, but they are so rare. So I think a big misconception is that we can do things really, really, really quickly. And the truth is, we can't.
How much time do you need?
That is a great question. And I have a terrible answer for you. It depends, is the answer. It depends on what the artist is doing. So, as an example, we typically book a campaign 8 to 12 weeks out from the release date. So right now we're looking at September, October. But beyond that, I always say to artists, we can send an email to, let's say, a television show 6 times before they respond. And we don't send it every week. We send it every other week. So, it really does take a lot of time. We have set our campaign structures based on a single, an album, an EP, how many singles an artist wants to do. Are they touring? We have set structures, and then we have some flexibility for longer term campaigns. You are going to typically look at about 10 to 12 weeks for a single. And for an album, you want about 6 months. And I know that's not what people want to hear. That is a long time. And if you're bringing on a publicist and potentially a radio tracker, or digital marketing, whatever it is, that is very, very costly. You don't have to work with somebody, like me or any of our sort of side services to artists, but you do want to give it space and time. Now, something, if you don't mind me mentioning, is I think this is really misunderstood in the music community. DSPs like Spotify and Amazon and all of those guys want music pumping out consistently. So artists will call and say, my release strategy is to release once every month. And I'm like, oh, no, you can't do that because, if in a month we've sent your pitch to a certain place twice, we've followed up, we're making phone calls, but it's not enough time. On DSPs it is. So if you want to release once a month, use your distributor, go to town, have a blast. But for us, we need those 10, 12 weeks for a single. So even though we work in tandem, I would say, with the DSPs, radio tracking, all that, our timelines are all opposing. You have to time it right. They're not opposing. It's with Spotify wanting once a month and us saying you can only release once every 2 to 3. They want more than we're willing to give, essentially. So I think artists need to keep that in mind, because if you're just trying to jog the algorithm and get it to pick you up and you're only concerned about streams, go ahead and release it once a month. But if you're going to pay a publicist, you're going to want a much bigger window for us to do our thing.
That's okay. That's good to know, because Bad Parade, you do music releases, which is singles, videos, EPs, and albums. But you also do tour publicity, local, regional, and then national coverage.
Yep.
And then you also help them, media kits. But I guess the media kits would be used in those 2 other channels as well.
Yeah. So there's 2 types of media kits. To be honest, there's kind of essentially one public type and then the private one that we use. So if you've heard of an EPK, an electronic press kit, that's typically a 1-page document. It's all hyperlinked. It looks really, really nice. There's a bit about the artist and some of their hits. They've been on this channel, or they've done this performance, or they opened for this person. And that's a really nice condensed way of putting an artist out if you're trying to get them shows or whatever it is. For us, and you've seen this in our emails, we send folders. We send hyperlinked folders. We don't send attachments. I remember being very stern about this on our last interview. You don't want to send attachments because they are a spam filter's favorite food. If you're attaching an MP3 and a wave and a bio and a photo and a cover, it's going automatically into a spam folder. But what I would say is, with an EPK, they're very useful for booking agents if you're trying to book a show or a tour. For us, when we're communicating with media, we're going to use those folders. They're download links, so you can open and view, but you don't have to download. We're not going to take up a bunch of space on your computer if you don't want us to. And we're also going to sneak past those spam folders and make sure that we get into your inbox. So an EPK can be very useful. We're not the one, we typically don't utilize them. Happy to have them if someone wants us to, but an EPK is great for managers and artists. And for us, we need folders and a variety of different content to go into those folders, because we're not booking. We are trying to get attention, and we don't want to. We need to provide essentially a little bit more than what's in that EPK, because that's very general. We're typically talking about a single or album or video, so we want to be targeted in our messaging.
Right. So what things are out of scope for a PR agent? I mean, what are the things that you don't do?
Great question. Booking is one of them. Artists will say, hey, love that you got me on this TV show, but can we book some shows? And I'm like, no, I wish I could. And I think beyond all the other pain points that an artist has in their career, one of the biggest is being able to book shows. It's so difficult. The booking agents, the reputable booking agents, don't want just anyone. They're kind of like record labels in a way, where they want to see your success before bringing you on their roster. So you know how a record label will say you have to have 100 million streams before we'll even talk to you. It's kind of like that. Not totally, and I don't want to offend any booking agents, but they just being great, just being phenomenally talented isn't really enough. So booking is something that we definitely don't do. And I think, people will see artists can be booked as a result of what we do, but we don't do the booking. Does that make sense? Yes. So someone sees them on TV and is like, hey, Carrie, I just saw this artist. I really want to talk to them about, performing at such and such event. I can make that connection, but we're not reaching out to venues to book. I wish maybe one day Bad Parade will also be a booking agency. So I would love to do that down the line, but that's something we definitely don't do. And there's a couple other things, in a way, because we're in constant contact with our artists, and we're always, telling them, hey, on this, wear a bright shirt, or don't wear too dark of a shirt over there. Or, just make sure that if you're doing an interview and you're wearing dangly earrings, like that, they're not going to chime into the little microphone they're giving you.
Right.
Yes. Just know that if you're going to wear dangly earrings and there's a mini microphone, whatever, I don't know what those are called, you want to make sure they don't chime, that you're not having a wind chime moment on the mic. Yeah. Exactly. You're getting all the valuable advice here.
That's right. Now, do you do things like help the artist with photography and those kinds of things, or is that out of scope as well?
That's a yes and no answer. I feel like I'm hitting you with all the terrible answers. So it is out of scope, but we will give pointers. So, there have been times where I've said an artist submits their photos to us and I say, these don't fit, if an artist is releasing a really upbeat and vibrant song, it's, it would be described as colorful, described as, happy. And they're giving us really moody, dark photos, like deep reds and purple. I'm going to call them and say, hey, this isn't the best idea. But we do guide. So I always tell artists, you have to have high resolution photos. It's so important because out of nowhere, print is so difficult to secure, but out of nowhere, we'll get a phone call from print publication saying, hey, Carrie, I need 3 photos by the end of the day. And if we don't have high resolution photos, the photos are not going in. So we'll give point, we want high res. We want landscape photos. I feel like this is not what artists want to deliver, but I would like a couple portrait too, but I want landscape. Landscape they typically land a little bit more. Yes. And we can cut and modify landscape, I feel like, better than we can modify portrait. So if you are an artist and you're taking headshots or you're doing photography, please provide a mixed bag of landscape and portrait, and make sure they're not too dark. You also don't necessarily want too much busyness in the back. because you want to be the center, you want to be the focal point. So we'll give pointers like that. If you're working with a reputable photographer, they're going to know all those things. They already know what we want. But if you're going out on your iPhone or equivalent and having your friends shoot you, then, hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah. And also, I guess, a certain amount of background as well, because you don't want everything so tight.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. So backgrounds are actually more important than people think. I'm trying to think of a good example. We had an artist do a photo shoot in kind of a garbage yard. Like it was just very industrial, and there was just lots of stuff. And he was getting lost in the photos. And I said, I can't, you're blending in. This is like camouflage, or where's Waldo? And that's not what we want. We want you to be the focal point. We want you to pop. So that's really important. I like a plain background if we can have one, or something limited in pattern and not too colorful. There's a delicate balance, and but we'll always give those pointers to make sure artists understand what we need from them.
So if a songwriter would be looking for a PR agent, I would send them to you, just because we know we've had so much experience, and we know that you deliver for basically everybody. You deliver not only for the artist, but you actually deliver for the people who you're sending the artist to. And not all PR agents do that, which we have found when we were on the radio doing a live show. Sometimes we'd find that out 5 minutes before the show, and that was always fun. So I know we normally send people to you, but if people can't get to you, what should they be looking for if they're going to be selecting a PR agent, in terms of maybe experience or suitability, or what things should they be looking out for?
For sure. That's a great question. The number one thing, I think, above all else, is, do they like what you're giving them? Do you feel when you talk to them about it, you're going to have to go on a little bit of gut instinct, but do they seem like they are interested in what you provided? I'll be totally honest with you. I don't know the first thing about heavy metal. Heavy metal? No clue. I wouldn't, if an artist wrote to me about heavy metal, I would say, hey, I'm not the right person for you. But if someone got on the phone with me, they would know right away. I wouldn't be able to fake that. And I think it's very difficult to fake interest, especially when you're going to be locked in with that person or that artist or songwriter for 10, 12, 18 weeks, however long it is. So you want to make sure that the person is interested. You also want to check out their roster. Do they have people that sound like you? Would this be their first foray into your sound? If there's if there's ever an opportunity for me to work with something I haven't worked with before, I say that to the artist. I haven't worked with this before, but I'm really into it, and here's what I think we could do. But you want to make sure that they have some type of footing in what you're giving them. And you also want to check things like, are they national? Are they going to all radio? Do they go to music directors at radio, or do they go to general info at such and such station? Have they had artists on TV? If a goal is TV, have you had artists on TV? Have you had artists on podcasts? Have you had artists do these things? You have every right to ask those questions. And I'll be honest, I'm never bothered when someone bombards me with questions, because I would rather them be fully aware of what they're getting into. We are going to be tied together for quite some time. And so, ask all the questions. I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say this. You got to do a vibe check. Check the vibes. Are they into you? Are they into what you're giving them? Have you seen any proof that they've had artists on this and this place? Is there anything that says, they've actually done what they're saying? What are some, would they be able to name challenges? Would they be able to name what they think they can do? Like, grill your publicist. Respectfully, but grill your publicist. Ask the questions. You have every right to, because you're going to be paying them a pretty penny and locked in with them for a while. But I also want to say on that topic, and tell me if I'm going a little too far aside here, you don't always need a publicist. And there are sometimes I'll say to people, I'll say, like, this isn't the right time for you. or we're not the right fit for you. But, this is a very common thing. If there's someone listening today who maybe hasn't ever released music or hasn't released music in, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, you don't need to start with a publicist. Single one that comes out you don't need to put your money, a crazy amount of money behind it. Pop it up on streaming. And I would actually turn away someone who hasn't released in a very long time for their first single. And that's because even if I like it, when I send it to you, if you're like, oh, this is cool, I want to check them out, and you go to their Spotify and nothing's there, or the only thing that's there is 10 or 12 years old, you're like, well, what is this? Is this going to be I keep going to make investment analogies, but is this going to perform the way that they used to? Is past performance an indicator of what they're going to do in the future? So, I tell artists, first and second single, you don't want to bring on a publicist. You want to do it yourself and optimize your socials. You can hire digital marketing. You can do a variety of different things if you really want to pay somebody. But there's a lot that you can do on your own. And I don't want anyone to feel like in order to be successful, you have to have a publicist and you have to be paying them for 18 months and all this stuff. You really, really can do things on your own.
So when should someone look into a publicist?
Great question. So I feel like all my answers to you today are, it depends, but I would say as a base level, you want to have some music out. I'm not going to take your first song. I've done it twice because I just had this instinct and I was like, these are amazing tracks and I'll take it. But for the most part, we don't take a first single. I also think there's something to be said about doing some of that work on your own and getting a bit of an understanding of, oh, I wrote to these 5 publications in my city and they didn't get back to me. I get it. Like when Carrie says she hasn't heard from them, she really means she hasn't heard from them. So I also think having a bit of a foundation of knowing what this is like is good. So yeah, definitely have some music out. You also want to be ready. You want to have a bio together. It doesn't have to be the best bio in the world. I think a lot of artists, especially writers get caught on their bio. They also get caught on their pitches because they're writers and they're like, and this happened and this happened and this happened. And then we come in and we're like, that doesn't matter right now. We're able to sort of distill it down. But be ready. We always say we want an MP3 and a WAV file. There are certain media outlets that only want a WAV. There are certain media outlets that only want an MP3. We send both. So we need the artist to be ready. Have your artwork ready. Have your photos ready, like we just talked about. You want to make sure that you're ready and not just, saying, oh, everyone else has a publicist, I should do it too. And I would also say, you want to have some real goals. We get a lot of phone calls from people saying, I don't know what I want to do with my, I don't know where I want it to go. And I'm like, well, what are you talking? Like, we work with the media. Is there anywhere in the media that you want to see or hear your music? And if you don't have something in mind, it might not be the time. It might be time to do a little bit more research because you'll be wasting your money, and not to say that a publicist is going to hit all of your goals. We're going to try or tell you if you're totally realistic. Like if you call me and say, I'd like the cover of such and such a magazine, I'll say, okay, not yet, but we'll work towards that. I always want to be transparent, but you want to have some goals in mind. You want to have a little bit beneath you to show media that this is your sound. You've got 1 or 2 songs out and you want to be ready. You want to have assets together and some goals of where those will show up.
So you say some music, and it's just a little vague for me. When you say some music, do you think, is it like maybe 2 years of live performing type thing, and then 10 songs or an EP, or so? What is some music?
That is a great question, and I should have been much clearer. Honestly, I would say 2 to 3 songs. It doesn't have to be years. Yeah, it doesn't have to be years. There has to be a point of reference. So as an example, if, I feel like actually you are going to be my example tonight. So if I were to send you an artist or talk to you about an artist and say, oh, so-and-so is amazing, you are just going to love them. They're absolutely incredible. And I send you the track and you like it. And you're like, oh, this is good. What else do they have? And you try and look them up and there's no website, and you try and go to their socials and there's no socials. Or I think the biggest sin of all is having a Twitter that's, 10 years old, that has, hasn't
Yes.
been updated in 10 years, and it's like meme central or whatever. There's, and there's nothing else for you to listen to. There's no point of reference. So you don't have to have a ton of content. I think we are in a day and age where content and music and songs and visibility has been pushed so hard on artists that, they're already overwhelmed. And, the idea that, I should have 15 songs out before I can call a publicity company is not true. I would say 2 or 3 so that someone can get a taste test of your music. If you can be across platforms, so if you can have a couple songs on the DSPs, but also maybe have a live performance of you performing in town or performing at home. All you have to do is hit record on a computer or a phone. A couple sort of cross-platform opportunities to get to know you and understand your music better, I think is a great thing as well.
Right. Yeah. So you kind of want to have all those things in place even before you approach a PR agent to see if it's going to be worthwhile.
I'd have music released, and I'd have new music on the go, new music ready, I should say. So if you've got 3 songs out and you have a new song you want to release that you haven't put out yet, that's the time to reach out and say, here's the new song. What do you think you can do with it? Because then I'll go and check out your old music and tell you, do I think I can do something or not? But you don't have to be, bombarding the DSPs with your music. You don't have to be posting all the time on socials. You just have to be consistent, and you want it to be up to date. You don't want to have that, 10 or 15-year-old Twitter account visible still if you're not using it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the PR industry is actually quite huge. And I mean, there's, huge companies like Ketchum. I used to do some work for Ketchum Public Relations back in the day.
Okay.
So there's lots of the ones that specialize in industries, and maybe a PR agent who's just starting off might sort of approach a songwriter or tell a songwriter they can do something for them, but they don't specialize in the music industry. So what do PR agents that specialize in the music industry, what do you bring to us?
It's a great question. I can actually answer this one without an ambiguous answer that I have to, clarify deep down. We know how to talk about music, and we know the audiences it's going to. So as an example, we work with traditional media. That's television, print, and radio. Obviously, radio doesn't care as much about a music video as much as TV. So we know our audience, we know who we're writing to in the media, and we know how to talk about music. We know what they want to know. We know what they need to know. We know what they want to know. Publicity at its core is kind of similar. Could you give me a product and I could publicize it? Yeah. Would I be as good as a, decade-old veteran? No. But with music, what we can do, I think that others can't yet, if they haven't tried it, is we know exactly what the media needs so that they can distill or essentially translate what we've given to their audiences. And we can send sort of translatable content that will work for radio, that will work for television, and will work for print.
Right. So what's is there one thing that you wish you could tell potential people coming to who are going to approach you? Is there something that you wish they would know that would just make your life so much easier?
Yes. I also think it will make their life easier. So thank you for asking. I think we're all going to benefit from this. I said earlier that the most valuable asset you have is, of course, your great music and time. Time is so, so, so important. I think we've really, because of the internet and because how quickly things can get done, we've lost the understanding that things take time. And so I always think of, I don't know who gave this to me, but someone in business gave me the topic of the sales principles. And when someone is looking to buy something, so let's say they want to buy a new phone, they are going to need multiple touch points with that item in order to make that purchase. So they might see their friend has it. That's one. They might go to the store and see it and touch it. That's two. They might get an ad for it. That's three. All these subtle touch points lead eventually to that sale. And I think people and artists and songwriters have lost the, I guess, kind of memory that things don't happen fast, right? As much as we'd love for a video to go viral immediately, it doesn't happen. So time is so important. You want to have multiple touch points. It's very rare that we send one email and get a response and say, "Hey, Carrie, we want these people to be on the cover of whatever." So time. But then the other thing is, and I see this all the time and it's really starting to bother me. So thank you for letting me talk about it. When an artist releases music, so let's say they do an album, and they release 2 or 3 singles off it, and then they release the album and they release a lead track with it. So let's say they've released technically 4 singles. When the album comes out, they think it's dead. It's out. Everyone has it. It's over. It's dead. I'm moving on to the next thing. But you have put years of effort, maybe a year or 2, whatever it is, into creating your art. And it doesn't need to die. You can always continue to release singles once an album is out. You can go to, perform at shows if you're able to book them, which is obviously a big pain point. But I always say, hit the road if you can. In no way am I implying that you should be doing a national tour and hitting Vancouver and Winnipeg. And, Canada is so massive. We were just talking about that. Canada is absolutely gigantic. I don't expect an independent artist to go on the road like that. But if you're able to play a few shows in your home area, if you have a friend in Calgary and can go sleep at their house and play a show, getting out of your zone, getting out of your home region can be so beneficial. And it's the marriage of all those things. Releasing music, if you can do publicity with it, that's great. And then performing and engaging the crowds. That is how the biggest artists in the world, except for today, like today's artists are a bit different, but the biggest artists in the world built their careers. And sure, times have changed and things always are changing with the media landscape. But the truth is it's still that connection with people, getting out there, getting people to hear you live. So play some shows. Don't give up on your music. We call it juicing. And I actually learned that from someone out by you, a record label out by you. They juice the albums. You should juice your album. You've worked so hard, get everything out of it that you can. And so that would be the thing. I see people essentially giving up. I call it album murder. You don't need to do that. It can live, you don't have to kill it unless you're sick of it and want to move on to the next thing. Let it breathe. Let it do whatever you want it to do. You can continue to release singles. You can continue to do whatever you want. Definitely get out and play some shows if you can. And, don't just cut it off and start the next thing.
That's true. Back in the day, you'd release an album and then you'd go on tour promoting the album often for like 1 or 2 years.
Exactly. Exactly. I've had artists say to me, Carrie, we did a song together and it went so well and I'm not getting any more traction. I said, well, you released 2 songs in 3 years and you haven't performed outside of your total home area. Like, it's always great to get that home field advantage, but hop over to another province. Like, that's the way you're going to do it. And if you have publicity when you're going to perform outside of your home region, and we can push that show and hopefully drive more ticket sales and merch sales and whatever else it is, that is the marriage. That is the way that everything works in sync. And, building a career back in the day versus today doesn't need to be that different. You don't have to be a TikTok star,
Well, how has the PR world changed from when you started to now? Because it's kind of a different world, actually, 10 years ago.
Well, so first of all, 10 years ago, I was getting paper cuts by doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mailers. I was just stuffing envelopes all the time. So that is certainly over. I mean, we will send out a handful of albums. If someone prints them, we'll send them, but very, very rare. It's not necessary anymore, which is makes things a little bit more affordable. Not spending all your money on shipping. But look, the landscape is incredibly dynamic. You know, media opportunities, media outlets disappear overnight. You know, you wake up and you read about another Bell Media layoff, or this thing is shutting down. You know, Entertainment Tonight Canada just closed. Different. I'm actually very happy to say, not about that. There was a radio show that we really, really loved, and it was on Global, and that was, you know, sort of squashed, and now the radio show is back on Bell, which I'm so happy about. But you know, these really wonderful media outlets and media opportunities are popping up and disappearing almost at the same rate, and so that is a huge challenge. Formats are changing. You know, we used to book artists in certain regions. If they were going to those regions or from them, we would typically be able to get them on TV for an interview or for a performance. Now, a lot of TV stations don't necessarily want to update some of their technology to do in-studio performances. It's expensive. So it is certainly changing all the time. I would say the number one thing is I'm not getting the paper cuts. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, things have definitely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's some brilliant information. I think it's just going to help a ton of people get their message out into the world. Thanks so much, Carrie.
So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great stuff, and we'll have you on. Should be on one of our panel shows. I think that'd be kind of fun too. You know, as we do a draft show or something. I don't know. We'll work it out.
Got it.
Well, I hear the band, and that means that's all the time we have here on Song Talk Radio. Don't forget, we'd love to hear from you on any subject, so send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. You can find links to all the products, books, and whatnot we talk about here on the show on the resources page. And no matter where you happen to be in the world, or if you happen to be in Toronto, Ontario, why not join us for the next Song Talk Radio Songwriters Meetup? It happens online via Zoom and locally in Toronto. It's where you can network with other songwriters and get insightful feedback on your works in progress. It's free to join, free to attend. Stop by the website at songtalk.ca for the link and the info. Carrie, where can we get more of you?
You can find me at www.badparade.com or across socials at Bad Parade Co.
That's BADPARADE?
Yes. Thank you.
Well, you never know the way the kids spell things these days.
I know. I know. Those kids. I know.
I know. Anyway, so you can get more of Neil at neilmodi.com, even though he doesn't happen to be here. You can get more of me at philemery.ca. And stop by the website at songtalk.ca to browse past shows and find out how you could be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, everyone, and keep on writing. Good night.